Okay, per request, I'm going to do a quick deck tech on Paleozoic frogs, and this is post February 2018 ban list. So we've got a couple of new additions as well as probably some cards we took out. I don't know. I haven't really been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for very long, so but I'm going to do my best to try to explain my card choice and just why I'm playing the deck. I guess why I'm playing the deck is I'm normally a control player in Magic the Gathering, but I've kind of given that game up. I'm giving Yu-Gi-Oh a try, and this seems to be like the best control deck that I've played with so far. The True Draco Masterpiece decks are also pretty good, so I really like those decks as well. But anyways, we'll get into the monsters rather. First off, we have Ash Blossom, Joyous Spring. This card's kind of ubiquitous in the format right now. It hits everything. It's not really great against Pendulum Magicians, but it's good against everything else, and we already have quite a few cards in the deck that are pretty good against Pendulum Magicians, especially if you're going first. Next, we have the Frog Engine, 3 swap frogs. Probably the best of the whole engine, but you need all of them to run it anyways. But with Swap Frog, if we open up with Swap Frog and any other of the frogs, we can get a turn 1 Totally Awesome. If we have multiple frogs, we can go into Mistar Boy, then Totally Awesome, or whatever we have to do at that point. 2 Ronin Totems, you only need 2. 3 is a little much. You don't really want to draw the card at all. You want it to stay in your deck. And then you want to go fetch it with a Swap Frog. Dupe Frog, it's not great if you don't have a Swap Frog in your opener, but it's not bad either. With 2000 defense, it's going to be hard for your opponent to just go ahead and attack it, but that doesn't really happen often anyways. Most of the time they're going to summon a creature or a monster. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! They're going to summon a monster that will be able to destroy it, but if they destroy it, you get a Swap Frog. So it's not that bad. It's a pretty good card. The cool thing about this engine that I've noticed is a little bit better than some of the other engines out there as far as getting your creatures on the board consistently, is that this engine is pretty resilient against hand traps, which everybody runs, especially Ash Blossom and Ghost Ogre as well. Because if they Ash Blossom your Swap Frog, you can just return it to your hand, and if you special summoned it that turn, you can just normal summon it, and you've got Totally Awesome. So Ash Blossom's like really bad against Swap Frog. Ghost Ogre is pretty good, but it's not a backbreaker. If you go Swap Frog, search, before you search, obviously they activate their Ghost Ogre, so it's going to die anyways. You get Ronin Totem, you can still special summon Ronin Totem, and if you have any Paleozoics or anything like that, you can pretty quickly get into a Totally Awesome. So that's why the Swap Frog engine, or the Frog engine in general, is I think a pretty good engine in this meta because you're very resilient against hand traps. Next up are the spell cards. We only run 5. I've seen other lists running up to 8, sometimes 7. I've seen Raigeki in the sideboard. I like Raigeki main deck. I want to have as many board wipes as possible because as soon as you board wipe them, if you can get into a Totally Awesome, you're generally so far ahead that they can't come back. So I'm running Raigeki main deck. I'm not running Card of Demise because most of the lists that I saw running Card of Demise were over 40 cards, and I don't like the restriction of not being able to special summon the turn that I play it. To me, that's a huge drawback. I mean, if you play Card of Demise and you draw a whole bunch of traps and you haven't already set your field full of traps, then yeah, it's pretty good. But if you draw a bunch of dupe frogs or a bunch of swap frogs, you lose a lot of value that way. Ronin Totem's not bad if you draw it off of Card of Demise because you're pitching it, but I mean, you're not gaining anything from that. So I'm just running 2 Pot of Desires as well as the 3 Reckless Creeds as draw power. I don't think this deck needs a ton of draw power. You just need to get your boss monster on the field and start generating value that way. So I don't think you need to like continuously be drawing a bunch of cards because your engine, once again, the engine is so easily set up with one card or one card here. You know, you don't need to just have a handful of cards all the time. So you don't need to dig too deep in your deck either. Next up are the Paleozoic trap cards. I guess I kind of go astray from some of the other decks. I've seen a lot of other decks running Paleozoic Morella or Paleozoic Leoncalia. I don't run those cards because they don't really interact with my opponent too much. I mean, maybe like you use Morella to get like a breakthrough skill, or you could, if they're, I don't even know a situation where they might want to use a banished card or summon a banished card, except maybe against dinosaurs, where Leoncalia might be usable. I don't even know. I just, I guess the only real usability of Leoncalia is grabbing cards that have been banished from Pot of Desires, or, bringing a Dupe Frog or a Swap Frog back from the banish into the graveyard so you can use a Ronin Totem again. But I mean, all of that is just so... it's just not very proactive, and it doesn't do anything to our opponent. And I feel like this deck is at its best when you're interacting with your opponent, destroying their spell cards, Book of Mooning their creatures, all of that. So in my Paleozoic engine, I'm just running 3 Olenoides, 3 Dynamiscus, and 3 Canadia. I've been really happy with it. Especially, a lot of times we have an Imperial Order on the field and we draw a Dark Hole, and you've got a pretty good chance of pitching that card to a Dynamiscus, so you don't really brick. You can pitch Ronin Totem to it. I mean, there's just so much you can do with the card. Because we're running 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance. Sometimes you draw 2 of them, or sometimes, God forbid, you draw 3. You need some way to gain value from dead cards in your hand, and Dynamiscus is great for that. And then, of course, we've got the 3 Paleozoic Canadia. It's just an all-around great card for interacting with your opponent's creatures. I think if you watch some of my videos, especially the one against Pendulum Magicians, the card is extremely good at messing with your opponent's strategy when they're trying to kill you or when they're trying to develop a board or whatever. It's just an all-around great card. And then we have the board wipes, the trap board wipes, 2 Mirror Force, 2 Torrential Tribute. I think that's really all you need. I know a lot of lists run bottomless trap hole, but I don't really want to go 1-for-1 except with my Paleozoic cards. I want to try to board wipe or get 2 cards or whatever. Originally I was trying to run evenly matched in this list, but it just didn't work out. I couldn't activate it and get the value from it as often as I would like. But yeah, I really like the 2 Torrential Tribute, 2 Mirror Force. It could be Storming Mirror Force. I feel like that's probably better against Spirals, but that doesn't really play well with the Monster Reborn. And if there was any card that I would cut from the deck, it would probably be Monster Reborn for another like Unending Nightmare or maybe like a Solemn Strike. It's really not that great in the deck because if we can wipe our opponent's board, we're probably going to win anyways, and a Monster Reborn is not going to be like what tips us over the edge. So the card is not super great in the deck, but I mean it is one of the most powerful spells in the game. So we should run it. And so if we're running Monster Reborn, Mirror Force is better than Storming Mirror Force, except in the off chance that you're playing Spirals. And then after that, we have our Floodgate cards. We're running 7 Floodgates. They're really great. If you open these cards going first, generally the game is in your hands. You have to really mess up to lose that game, or your opponent just has to have something awesome. But against Pendulums, if you open this card up against Pendulums, they're basically done. Going second, it's not super great. I'd probably board it out for something like, or board out maybe like 1 for something like Heavy Death Storm. But going first against Pendulum Magician's Anti-Spell Fragrance is a game ender if they don't have an immediate answer for it. And it's pretty good against all the other decks too. There's not a lot of decks that really want to play with an Anti-Spell Fragrance on the board. Maybe True Draco can get around it, but if they don't have that tribute monster in their hand, it's going to be hard for them to go get it because they use spells to go get it. So you're turning them off. You're delaying their strategy for quite a while. Then we're running 2 Mistakes main board. This card's really good against a whole plethora of decks. It's not super great against Pendulums, but because a lot of times it seems like they're bringing cards out of the deck and putting them in the side deck or the graveyard. I mean, not the side deck, the extra deck or the graveyard, or they're just bringing them straight to the field. So it's not super great against Pendulums, but against Trickstars, True Draco, stuff like that. Mistake is a really good card. Next up is the 1 Imperial Order. I mean, it sort of speaks for itself. It's one of the most powerful cards in the game, I think. This is going to shut down a lot of decks. I don't know of really any deck that wants to see Imperial Order on the field. And just as someone who played Yu-Gi-Oh a long time ago, and then fell out of the game, being able to play with this card, which was a card that I used to own physically and played with when I was way younger. It's cool. It brings back a little nostalgia, and it's just so extremely powerful that it's a real pleasure to be able to run it in this deck. Then next up we have Unending Nightmare. This card is really good against Pendulums, obviously. You can just start popping their Pendulum monsters, and they can't really scale up to do what they want to do. It does, it takes a lot of life when you're doing that against Pendulums, so it's not always the best card. I tried to run 2. It was not really where I wanted it to be. But as far as against everything else in the format, it's pretty good because there's so many decks that want to land a field spell and have that field spell stick around for a while. So being able to pop it as soon as it enters the battle or enters the field spell zone, whatever you call it, and then say they terraforming and try to get into another one, you can just blow that one up as well. It's a really good card. I don't think you need more than 1 though. If Imperial Order was banned, then there would be 2 of these. But since you only can have 1 Imperial Order, you want that extra card to be able to deal with face-up spell and trap cards, obviously. And then rounding things off, in the main deck, we have 1 Solemn Judgment and 1 Solemn Warning. I've seen a lot of decks running 3 Solemn Strikes and 1 Solemn Judgment. I don't honestly. I'm not a huge fan of these cards, anyways. I know, the best cards in the game, or not the best cards in the game. Solemn Judgment's one of the most powerful cards in the game. I want to limit the number of cards in the deck or the number of trap cards that I can't chain Paleozoic cards to. So basically, the only 4 cards in this deck that I can't chain any of my Paleozoic creatures to are Torrential Tributes, the 2 Torrential Tributes, and then the 2 Solemn cards, Solemn Warning and Solemn Judgment. But I mean, they are really good, obviously. Sometimes Solemn Judgment just ends the game. Solemn Strike doesn't usually do something like that, but it's a very powerful card. They try to summon their special boss monster or whatever, and you negate it, and there it is. I like how Solemn Judgment is pay half of your life instead of pay 2,000, because you can always activate this card if you have, I guess, 1 life point. I assume if you have 1, can you have a half life? I don't know. I'm pretty new to the game, but I like how that's pay your half your life instead of pay 2,000. And that was another issue. I tried running 3 Solemn Strikes, and I was just losing so much life that it got to the point where I couldn't activate something like Imperial Order, or I couldn't even activate the Solemn Strike because my life was too low. So I think just having the 2 solemn cards is really key here, and it keeps us at this special 40 number, which I think is the way to go with this deck. You don't want to have too many cards. You want to get your cards and you want to get your floodgates, and then go into your boss monsters, which we're getting to now in the extra deck. First up is Paleozoic Anomalocaris. Anomalocaris. This card's pretty good. This deck so consistently wants to get into Totally Awesome that a lot of these extra deck cards only come up ever so often. But one cool thing with this card is, like, against something like Pendulum Magicians or some other decks, if they get a monster on the field that negates effect monsters, from my understanding, you can summon your Paleozoic Anomalocaris, pop whatever card that they have that negates board wipes, whatever board wipe you might have at the time, and then you can board wipe. So it's a very good card. If you get in the situation where you use it, then obviously it can get the job done. Number 45, I think this card has to be in the deck. There's just so many things that you want to negate sometimes, as far as when you're trying to break their board. Being able to negate a monster, or a field spell, or a face up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you can do anything, any face up card. So just being able to negate something that's troublesome is huge. And I mean, the attack it's got the same attack as Totally Awesome. It's a rank 2 like this is just really powerful. So I think it belongs in the deck. Make room for it. And then the 3 Totally Awesomes. This card is why you want to play the deck, I assume. If you get this card on the field and your opponent has an empty board, generally there's just nothing they can do to come back from it. It's a quote unquote unbreakable board by itself. I mean, the fact that your boss monster is 2 toads and a peach is pretty cool. But yeah, it's a great card. It answers your opponent's threats and generates you value at the same time. That is, you can run 3 of them, and if it dies, you get a frog back. So it's just pure value, and this is the reason why you play Paleozoic frogs, is so that you can get into a Totally Awesome and just ruin your opponent's day and have them hate you when it's all said and done. So that is Paleozoic frogs right there. Those 3 cards. Not that guy. He's really cool though. But these 3 are coolest cards in the game, I think, for me. That's why I'm playing this deck. I could go on and on about it. Next up is Sky Cavalry Centauria. This card is really good for removing a large creature that you can't target. Besides that, it's just not. I mean, that's just like that one situation where they've got a huge monster on the field, and you've got to get it out of the way, but you can't target it. The next one is, like, say they have a monster that you can target, but it has some weird effect or something that you want to be able to deal with. Phantom Knights of the Cursed Javelin is a great card for that, because you can just negate their creature, their attack goes to 0, and you can mow over it with anything in the deck. These 2 cards are pretty cool. We've got Cat Shark and Digusto Phoenix. If you ever get in a situation where your opponent kind of, like, say you stop your opponent from doing something and they have to end their turn, but you're afraid that they might win the following turn, Cat Shark and Digusto Phoenix. If you can make Mistar Boy and these guys, you can instantly kill your opponent from 8,000. Cat Shark makes Digusto Phoenix have 3,000 attack. Digusto Phoenix attacks twice. If you have a Mistar Boy, that's 8,900, and then you attack with Cat Shark and you win. A lot of times you end up making a Decode Talker into Cat Shark into Digesto Phoenix, or the other way around. It's Decode Talker into Digesto Phoenix. Activate Digesto Phoenix's ability. Generally, this is how it works, and then you send one of their XYZ material monsters to the graveyard. Generally, it's probably going to be Rodentoden, and then you'll use Rodentoden again with whatever you have to make a Cat Shark, and then go off from that point. Paleozoic Opabinia. This card is really good. Also, it's easier to make than Anomalocaris, and being able to it's just like pure value, along with Totally Awesome. But sometimes you need spot removal, and Totally Awesome is not great at that. Like Totally Awesome is great on an empty board, but Opabinia is pretty good if your opponent already has an established board and you can you have a few spells you can interact. Ways to interact with it. Like you get if you can make him, then you've already got a Paleozoic that you're going to send to the graveyard, and then you're going to go get a Paleozoic, and that's going to allow you to special summon, and then you have another Paleozoic in the graveyard. You can basically just link summon as soon as, like, right after you activate this card, and then your Paleozoic, you can link summon into like Mistar Boy or Proxy Dragon or Decode Talker. Proxy Dragon, I haven't used this card very much. I really haven't gotten into a situation where Proxy Dragon was useful. And I guess, if you ever get in the situation where you need it, then cool. But maybe it could be something else. And Decode Talker, sometimes it's really good. You don't always have to make a Decode Talker, but sometimes it's really good. Then next up is the side deck. And we'll just go over this pretty quickly. 3 Gamecill, the Sea Turtle Kaiju. It's really good in the deck because you can just use it with Swap Frog to go off and make a Totally Awesome. It itself can't make Totally Awesome because it's not a rank 2 or a level 2, but it can be pitched to Swap Frog. But you really need it against the True Draco decks. If they go into Masterpiece and you don't have a way to deal with it, i.e. a Gamecill, you're pretty screwed quickly. So you really need that card for the Kaijus. I'm sure, or for the True Draco decks. I'm sure that it's good against other decks, but I'm really bringing these cards. I'm bringing 3 of these in against True Draco decks. Next up is Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit at 2. Maybe this should be main deck. I don't know. I'm running it in the sideboard, but obviously this card, if you have this card in your hand and you're going second against Pendulums, you're in such a great spot because they go into Electromite and then you destroy Electromite and they basically have to start all over. And a lot of times they don't have enough cards to do that, and so the unbreakable board that they were trying to establish is now easily broken, and you can continue on with your day. You don't have to worry about dying on the first turn or ending your turn with them having an unbreakable board. So Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is the best hand trap against Pendulums, and you really want to see it in your opener if you're going second against that deck. You just really want to see a Ghost Ogre. Maybe even run 3. Like if you could find a way to fit 3 in the deck, maybe even run 3. It's that powerful against the best deck in the format. Next up is Mind Crush. It's hard to say how good this card is. I have never had an evenly matched. I've been playing this deck for about a month. I haven't had anyone activate evenly matched on me. And that's why I put this card in the deck, or in the side deck. But it is really good against True Draco cards, or True Draco decks, because a lot of times they're trying, they gotta have that card in their hand. They've got to get that True Draco in their hand because they're not bringing it back from the graveyard as much as some other decks out there that are able to recur their creatures. So it can be a very good card if you know it. The thing is, if you have 2 of them and you have 1 card in your hand and you activate one getting whatever card that you get, then you get like it's a free discard spell because you've already seen their hand and you can just mind crush them again. So I think the deck needs it. I think it needs to be in the sideboard, especially if evenly matched becomes a card that is more heavily played than at least what I've seen personally. Next up is Heavy Dust Storm. This card is also another backbreaker for the pendulum decks. You set this going first, and then they pendulum blow it, and then you blow it up. A lot of times they're just like, well, that's it. I can't do anything. It's good in the mirror as well. I just think it's a lot better than Twin Twister. I tried Twin Twister, and you don't generally have dead cards in your hand. Every now and then you have dead cards in your hand, but that's why you have the Dynamiscus. I don't think you need another card that's like, oh well, the stipulation is I have to have a card in my hand, especially since we're running Mind Crush. It's just too much of like oh, I gotta have cards in my hand. So I think Heavy Dust Storm, being the fact that it's just a straight up 1 for 2 or no, 2 for 1 rather, it's good. I like it. Next up is 3-Dimensional Barrier. It breaks the back of pendulums if you don't die to them or their board isn't broken. I mean, if their board isn't unbreakable, then this card is really awesome. It stops the pendulums. They can still normal summon their pendulums, but the effects are negated. And then it's really good against other decks too, like the invoked decks that are trying to bring out really powerful fusion monsters. Dimensional Barrier is so great against them because they actually have to commit a card before they know that you have the Dimensional Barrier. So not only are you taking away that fusion spell that they had, but you're turning their turn off as well. So yeah, I'm running 3 of these. And then Mask of Restrict, it's good against Kaijus. That's one of the ways that your opponent's probably going to try to out your Totally Awesome is with a Kaiju. So with a Mask of Restrict on the board, you're safe from that. And then also it's really good against the True Dracos. Like if they don't have a way to kill the Mask of Restrict pretty quickly, then you're going to get ahead and they're not going to be able to do anything. So, and that's Paleozoic Frogs for you. 40 cards. I've seen some 60 card lists. I've seen some 43 cards, 45 cards, 41, whatever. But I'm trying to keep it at 40. And I've been posting a lot of videos. If y'all, if you see this video and then you want to go back and kind of see the deck in action, it's changed a little bit since I first started posting the videos. I was running evenly matched in some of those earlier videos. But now I think I'm set on this list right here. But thanks for watching, guys. If you're interested in more Yu-Gi-Oh content, or you want to see like a different deck, my take on a different deck, maybe True Dracos or something like that, just feel free to comment and let me know what you guys want to see. I'm really enjoying this game. Coming from Magic the Gathering into Yu-Gi-Oh, I had a lot of reservations or stereotypes of what Yu-Gi-Oh was, but now after playing it I played it for a little bit before the new ban list came out, but then once I realized that when the new ban list was going to come out, I stopped playing for a little bit, but now I'm back in it full force, and I'm really enjoying this Paleozoic Frogs deck. But if you want to see something else, just let me know. Alright, thanks guys.